Alright lads, welcome back to another episode of Who's Got the Ball. This one is brought live from the hospital because both of us are literally dying sick. Plenty of coughing, plenty of spluttering, plenty of sneezing, but all of it was off mute or was on mute for you guys. So you didn't have to listen to it, but if you're watching on YouTube, you may see us mute ourselves and do it because if we just had to stop recording, the flow would be all over the place. But anyway, Shane, how are you apart from the sickness?
Yeah, so I came up to Dublin to you last weekend, and clearly we had far too much fun because now the two of us are in an awful state. So we brought it on ourselves. We went to the Leinster game. What a game of rugby! Bar the last kick of the game, but it was absolutely incredible to be there to watch it. So that was fun, and the two of us are paying for it all week. So as you said, the spluttering and coughing is all off. It's all muted, so you don't have to hear it. So you've nothing to worry about there. Yeah, I just like I was only thinking if we were to pause it every time we coughed, this recording would be 4 hours long and there'd be absolutely nothing we could do about it. It would just be so choppy. It would be the worst episode ever recorded. So you'll just have to let us away with it for this week. We'll be back, hopefully be back to normal again next week.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of made clear that we had fun at the game because that sounded quite suspect there for a minute when you said we had too much fun and both of us were in an awful state. So yeah, let's not delve too much into that one. But yeah, Leinster got the win despite Shane cheering for La Rochelle during the whole game. He was welded to his seat when that Harry Byrne kick went over at the end, which is fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Before I get into the rundown, I want to tell you guys I'm going to be heading to San Francisco to cover the Super Bowl for the week. I got a media pass. Massive thanks to Jimmy at Gaelic Gridiron. So I'm going with those guys because I've been writing articles for them and I appear on their podcast often as well, kind of shared on my story. So if you do want to get a bit more of me, that's where to find it. But yeah, I want to thank him a lot for giving me that opportunity. Who's Got the Ball is going to be represented at the Super Bowl week, at the media events, press conferences, everything. So plenty of inside stuff for you and plenty of extra clips and all sorts during the week. So keep an eye out for that on our social media. And once again, thanks to him for that opportunity. But let's move into our rundown for the week. Packed episode, absolutely packed. We talked about a lot considering how much we were dying sick, but we started with the NBA. We went over Trae Young's trade to the Wizards, what that means. We looked at an early playoff kind of picture, what it looks like midway through the season and the changes we think are going to come in throughout the rest of the season. Clutch player of the week, we differed here. We couldn't decide, so we both went and gave our picks, and you can decide what you think for the arguments we made. We kind of looked at the fallout from the wildcard round, mainly with coaching changes and maybe how that'll impact then next season, but also how some of the wins will impact the games that shape up this weekend because we previewed the full divisional round, gave our thoughts on each and every one of the games and gave our picks for each of them as well as a lock and one game we think is definitely going to come off with our prediction. And then lastly, we moved on to the Premier League. We talked about all the transfers midway through this January transfer window. Not that there's a whole pile, but just kind of some of the interesting ones and what may be coming up. But again, not a whole lot. I think it could be quite a boring window. But we gave you a check in there, and we hope we're wrong. We hope we get a lot of big transfers to talk about. And then we previewed United versus City, the big derby with Michael Carrick at the helm. We also had Gun Chance and Power Rankings thrown in there as usual. So packed episode. Let's get straight into it. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, keep an eye out for all the nose blowing, spluttering, coughing that we muted ourselves for. Absolute treat, absolute gold. Let's get into it. Okay, so we got our first major move of NBA trade season. This is the first one that's gone down before the deadline, and it's Trae Young landing on the Wizards. Yeah, he's just played 10 games so far this season with injuries, but last season, if you take a look at his stats, he did have a career high for assists. His turnover numbers were as high as usual for him, up around five, just below five, and the assist margin is close to 12, which is really good. But they didn't do a whole lot last season with Jalen Johnson injured, the Hawks, and then looking at 24 points per game. Really, what the Wizards are getting here is someone who's just going to put up a bucket load of shots. And I don't know if that's the right thing that they need because maybe they saw the chance to get an all-star for basically nothing because they gave up Corey Kispert and a 34-year-old CJ McCollum, which is probably a lot less than people thought in Atlanta and also probably a lot less than Trae Young thought he was worth. But yeah, maybe they just went for that because it was so low of a value. But you're going to be taking the ball out of the hands of the likes of Keyshawn George and Trey Johnson, who are trying to learn and become the future of this team. So I'm not sure that this is the right thing to do for the Wizards, and I also don't know what the benefit of the Hawks getting those two guys just for pretty much nothing in return for Trae Young is.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think, first of all, the value was so low. So it feels like Washington literally just did it because they could. One of those, like, oh, we can get him. Oh, let's get him. What do they want? Is this all they want? Okay, let's absolutely jump at it. But like, they're probably not going to play him the season. So come out today, he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. They
Yeah,
need their pick to be in the top eight, or they lose it to the Knicks. And putting him in there gives them more of a chance of winning games if he's in there shooting as well. And if
yeah,
they come out of getting a top eight, bottom eight pick, they lose that to the Knicks, and they're not going to want that. So are they just going to sit him? Let's say if he comes back in 10 games time, there's 30 odd games left. Then are they just going to sit him for the last 30 games, depending on where they're sitting in their conference and see. So that doesn't make sense to me. For the Hawks, it makes a little bit more sense. So Kispert is a 38% career tree shooter.
mm,
So he's a good addition, kind of a good addition. Like you could also see them trade parting ways with him as well if they got an offer for him. So you don't know. It's just a really weird trade. I know he wanted to go, but this feels a bit like if this is what Memphis got for Jamaran to make more sense because Jamaran's stock has fallen to this kind of a level, whereas Trey Young's stock doesn't feel like it should have fallen to this low of a level yet. Injuries are obviously playing a toll in it, but he's still a quality operator when he is on the court. Whereas getting Jamarant on the court is an issue for another reason as well. So both sides, it doesn't make sense, but it also makes sense in some way that if they go into next season, they keep their top eight pick and they have Trey Young as their veteran. It makes a bit more sense in that sense. But in general, I just think it's such a strange move for a team that's trying to tank to bring in someone that
yeah,
can shoot, assist. Okay, turns it over 5 times. Like you said, it's the assist difference is 12. So his turnovers aren't going to make a massive difference on a team like this, really.
yeah. That's true. If he did play this season at all, which you rightly pointed out that it could be pretty likely that they don't play him because they don't want to move up the board by the time he is fit after the All Star break. So I don't know. I think that also begs the question: if they did get a top pick, would they then be more reluctant to take a guard because they have Trae Young? But that wouldn't like I wouldn't think you should be because he's not going to be there for the long haul. Where as you could get a
Yeah.
really good young guard, but at the same time you have to think about the roster you have. So I don't know, like really overall what it's worth, but it worked out for Trae Young because nobody wants to go to the Wizards. Let's start off there. He didn't decide he wanted to go to the Wizards for basketball reasons. He wanted to go there because they can give him a max extension. He has a decision to make in the summer about whether he picks up his $49 million player option or not. He's hopeful. I think that if he picks that up, plays next season, the Wizards jump up to the play-in level, and he has a decent season. He goes and grabs a massive contract either with the Wizards or somewhere else the year after that. So he's playing the game for himself. You know, he said he did it for the Hawks that he thought it was a good time to move away. Blah blah blah. But like that's not true. He did it for his own ability to get the most money that he can. And he also did it because he knows this is Jalen Johnson's team now. They're moving on from him and they're better without him. So he knows that this is the time to move on and they're not going to defer to him constantly in Atlanta the way they will when he plays for the Wizards next season.
Yeah, this is such a stepping stone move. It's clear as day. As you said, literally nobody wants to end up in Washington. So why would he suddenly choose, oh, this is where I want to go? It's for him, it's guaranteed money next year. Um, a team that are going to play through him next year. He's still only 27, you have to remember as well. He's not exactly old, even though the one thing I hate about basketball is when they call any player who's been in the league about 4 years a veteran. Like a
Yeah,
veteran to me is someone who should be 34 or up. He's 27. So he's a veteran in basketball sense, but he still has 10 years left in him if the injuries don't take a massive toll on him. So he's not going to spend the next 10 years in Washington. As you said, like if they don't take a guard next year because they have Trey Young, it could be a very silly move if they do move up a good bit and then they have no pick the year after to get someone in to replace Trae Young, who has gone off to a contender all of a sudden again. So that kind of thing doesn't make sense. Like there's no way he's gone there for basketball reasons, as you said. It's money and to try and build his name back up to a point where someone who's actually contending wants him. Someone like the Celtics or something will come in and say, "Oh yeah, we'll have a piece of that for the next 3 years if you want to give it up for whatever." So I wonder as well if like the fact they paid so little for him would be like, "Oh well, you got me for so cheap. I want you to now send me off here to Boston for cheap as well." So that could be another thing for him as well, where it's like, "Joe, I've shook your hand. You need to shake mine back now, and I want to go and to a team that's contending again." The Hawks were never really contending with him, but if he went somewhere that was contending, I think he'd be a good addition. But again, like it's so hard to trust him. Like I just said, he only played 10 games this season. That's why his stock was so low. Like there's no way the Rockets, who do really need a guard, the Rockets weren't going to go and blow it up for him when he's going to be out for another maybe 15 or 20 games, and then have him back at the crunch part of the season. You're trying to get him up to speed. You're not going to give up anything to get someone in like that. So this is kind of his level at the moment. We'll see if he can make the step up again, but I don't know. I just think it's a very strange career move if you do plan on playing basketball and you're not just in it for money.
Yeah, yeah. I think you made some good points there, and the thought of him moving somewhere else, I think that's it may not be that he says, you should give me up for a lower value. It might be a fact like you basically didn't give up a whole lot for me, so I don't feel any guilt whatsoever for just taking the player option and then walking away.
Yeah.
And there's nothing the Wizards can do to stop that. So yeah, first move. We'll see if we get any more. Anthony Davis talk is ramping up again, so we might get that. But Michael, I think he'll be back on next week, and he wants to chat trades in the trade season. So we'll defer that one to him leading into next week. We want to take a look at the midway playoff picture. So we're going to start with the Eastern Conference. We'll just run through who's in the mix right now. So out in front, we've got the Pistons, 28 and 10. Then we've got a bunch with the Knicks, Celtics, Raptors, Sixers, Magic, and Cavs, kind of all around the same level. Now there's a bit of a space between the Knicks and Celtics down to Raptors of a couple of games, and then there's a couple of games between them and the Sixers, Magic, and Cavs. So those are the next bunch. One of those is probably going to be in the play-in mix. The rest are going to make it through. Then we've got the Heat, Hawks, and Bulls all sitting like just around 500 or just below. And then on the outside looking in, we've got the Bucks at 17 and 23. They're 2 games behind the Bulls. And then we've got the Hornets at 14 and 26, who are a good few more games back. So they're pretty much out of contention. I think that they probably don't win too many games, but they've been looking decent this season. The main thoughts I have here are that I like the Bucks to push the Bulls out. The Bulls have just been continuously falling down, and the Bucks have Giannis, so he said he won't demand a trade. So it looks like he's going to be staying there, and he'll get them into the play-in mix, I'd say. And then I like the top six to stay similarly enough, with maybe the Cavs getting in over the Magic or the Raptors if they kind of hit a slump. I think the Sixers are kind of on cruise control at the moment to get like the fourth or fifth seed, and they'll have nights where they rest players and nights where they don't and kick on the playoffs. But that's kind of the outlook. I do think that the Pistons do keep that one seed though till the end of the season. They're clearly the best team in the East.
Yeah, I do agree with you wholeheartedly there, especially the point about the Cavaliers. So they are starting to look like a real basketball team again. I think the Bulls have been getting away with too long, kind of settling for a playing spot. So I think this is the year where they will probably finish just outside it. The Bucks will definitely push on from here, especially with Giannis saying what he said and kind of he's a catalyst for that team. So when he's playing, they play better. It's simple as that. And I know that's not exactly a massive what's the word? A massive bombshell to say that they play better with him, but they're better than the Bulls are when he's in that team as well. So I do think they'll push on. I think the top two is pretty much set. I do think the Knicks will stay where they are, even though they're on a 4-6 run at the moment. I think they will turn that around again. Celtics, Raptors, Sixers will probably see out the top five then, and then it's between the Magics down to the Heat to get between like to get 6 and 7. So we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. So what? There's nothing on that side that would like. There's no one there that's going to surprise you really. Like the Hornets, the Nets, the Wizards, and the Pacers are all awful basketball teams. So they're not going to be pushing on. The Hornets are better this year, but that doesn't mean they're good at the same time. The Buck, it will go down as far as the Bucks, and we'll see which team drops out then as well.
Yeah, I think I'd definitely put my money on the Bulls because I think the Hawks are gonna get. We kind of went, like I said, there's not a whole lot there with McCollum, but obviously he is aging, so it's not a long-term fix. But he will help them this season
Mm,
to have a veteran guard that will actually defer to Jalen Johnson instead of hog the ball, which is what they want. And so I do think they could push up closer to that 7 point, but as you said, the Cavs are kicking on a little bit now. So if the Magic don't get their act together, they could slip into the play-in. So I think there's kind of a clear top 10 because I don't think the Bulls are good enough really. Um, and I agree with you that the Knicks will keep the 2 seed. I think while the Celtics are doing great, I think maybe 3 or 4 is where they'll end up because they do have a depleted roster and it's not going to work out forever. So I don't know. It's going to make an interesting playoff picture though, because if the Pistons get the 1 seed and say the likes of the Magic or Cavs are in the play-in and they kind of finish in the 8 seed, that would be a very interesting matchup, like Pistons versus Magic.
yeah,
They get a really tough matchup in the first round where the Magic could be perfectly ramped up at that stage and ready to go.
100%. And I think that would be for kind of a neutral's point, which we would be in terms of the Pistons against anyone. That would be be a much more interesting matchup if they were playing the Magic or the Cavaliers than if they got a walk in by getting the Bulls, because the Bulls have snuck through again and they win the play in like they did last year and they get the 8 seed. Then I think the Pistons at some point are going to need a proper test, because we've said it since day one of doing this podcast. We've said the difference in quality between the East and the West is mad. And if the Pistons come up against any of the teams in the West without having to go through any sort of hard graft to get there, it could be really, really ugly when it came to playoff time. So I think they need to play someone like the Magic or the Cavaliers in a playoff. Sorry, Magic, Cavaliers or Sixers. They need one of those in the playoff. Just kind of show what they can do on a bigger stage than just going out and beating the Nets and the Wizards and the Hornets and a poor Bucks team at the moment. So I do think that would be far better for them. Like
Yeah,
in their conference games, they're 20-6 so far this season.
very
I
easy.
know the Thunder are 27-6 in theirs, and we'll talk about them in a couple of minutes. But like they haven't really been tested much on their side, and they've only lost 4 games to teams from the West then as well. So they are clearly a good basketball team. But if they go into a playoff on cruise control or autopilot, then it could be a sorry state for them.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. You need to be tested early on, like you said. And I think that middle pack is kind of some tricky teams because the Celtics, they can do whatever, and Tatum could be back, as we talked about them in detail last week. So if you wanted to hear our thoughts on that, go back to last week's episode and give that one a listen if you missed it. But I think the Sixers, Cavs, and Raptors all have solid defensive players and solid scorers who can test anybody. And then obviously with the Sixers, to have Maxey and Embiid on the same team with Paul George, if all three of those are firing, they could take down anybody. So it's like that middle pack is that might sharpen a team. Whoever comes out of that little section of teams may well get through the East because they're like well sharpened. They've played tough teams, tough opponents, and they could take down a Knicks or a Pistons who do. I think the Pistons are more tough. They're harder to beat, but the Knicks are they have their flaws, and I think playoff teams would know how to attack that as they have done in the past. So yeah, I think that middle pack is where we see the real contenders coming out of. I think maybe. We'll look
Yeah,
at unless you have anything else there, we'll look at the Western Conference.
I, I was just going to agree with you, but I just think like anyone on the East can beat anyone. Whoever finished in that top eight, you could easily see the Magic putting it up to the Pistons over 7 games and coming out 4-3. You could see the Knicks losing to the Cavs very easily as well. The Cavs were a monster of a team last year. Like that hasn't just completely fallen off a cliff. They just seem to be taking it a bit handier this year. So the East really is wide open at the moment. So we'll have to see who gets that final playing spot through the playoff, or sorry, who gets the playoff spot through the play-in, and just the matchup's going to be so interesting on that side.
Yeah, and the Cavs having Sam Merrill, Max Strus, and Darius Garland injured, like all their shooters pretty much, and they gave up Ty Jerome, and their main thing was shooting threes last season. So it's no wonder that they've fallen off. I think when they're all fit, it will be a different story. Looking at the Western Conference, then Sitting at the one seed, we have the Thunder, who are 34-7. They're way out in front at the moment. Then we've got a pack of teams with the Nuggets, Spurs, and Timberwolves all around the same record: 28-13, 27-13, and 27-14. Then there's another grouping of Lakers, Rockets, and Suns, who are 24-14, 23-14, and 24-16. The Suns a little bit further off, but still only a half game back from the Rockets in the standings. Then we've got Warriors, Blazers, and Grizzlies making up the last of the playing teams. I think Blazers and Grizzlies are the most kind of worrisome about falling out right now because the Clippers are on an 8-2 run. They've won their last four. They're up to 17-23 after an awful start, and they're definitely going to get into the play-in, I think. It's just whether they push out the Grizzlies or Blazers. And with the way the Blazers have looked as of late, it looks like the Grizzlies may be the ones that are in big danger of dropping out here.
Yeah, so the Grizzlies have gone and have kind of done the opposite of what the Clippers did. They had a pretty good start and they're kind of falling off a cliff at the moment. So they're 4-6 in their last 10. They haven't looked convincing in any of the four wins either, really. So they would be the ones that I would be worried about for the Clippers. I think the top eight is kind of set. It's just the order needs to be sorted out. And this, I think the Warriors or the Suns will end up in that playing spot. I think the top six. I don't think the Rockets are going to fall into the play-in. The Rockets have only played 14 home games and they're 12-2 at home. So when they do have a lot to catch up on at home as well, which could push them back up the rankings as well. But they're another team. They're 11-12 away. Um, they're losing games they shouldn't be losing. Like losing to the Kings, they've lost to the Jazz, they've lost to the Mavericks. It's just kind of it's weird the way the Rocket season is going. They really need a guard, as we said, talking about Trae Young, and they just don't really seem to be in the market for anyone at the moment. So I don't know. Hopefully they can push back up into that top four. But I do think the top eight are set. And it's from Trailblazers down to Clippers or even Mavericks to get the final playing spot.
Yeah, I think the Rockets' worrying thing as well is their overtime record. They're 1-4, which
Yeah.
is one of the worst in the league, and definitely by far the worst of all the teams in the playoff spots in the West. And I think they are in a little bit of danger if they don't correct course of falling because the Suns are only half a game back, and then the Warriors are 3 games back. So I think if the Warriors actually play decent basketball, which they haven't done pretty much all season, the
Mm.
Rockets could find them on their heels. And now I do think they have enough to stay in it, but they just would want to be wary of that. And the Lakers are in a similar boat, but I wouldn't worry as much about them because Luka is just going to win you enough games on his own to keep you in that 5 or 6 seed. Really impressed with the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
They're pushing up now. They're only a game behind the Nuggets, so they're well in play for that 2 seed, especially with Jokic being out. So it would be interesting to see if the Timberwolves make that push and kind of break into the top three and push the Nuggets and Spurs down a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all either, to be honest. They've just, do you know what? They've got some really, really good basketball players. Anthony Edwards is just a monster when he's on the court, and he's very hard to stop when he's on it properly. He's very hard to stop. So yeah, the Nuggets and Spurs should definitely be very wary of the Timberwolves coming up behind them, especially the Spurs. They're on a bit of a
Mm,
cold streak as well at the moment. They're 4-6 and they've lost their last two. So they've kind of given the Timberwolves the chance to catch up to them. They have the same
yeah,
amount of wins now. The Timberwolves have just played one extra game, so they're only half a game back from them as well. So it's really, really tight for a conference that is normally like the lower teams normally just scrape to about 15 wins, but they're all in double digits so far this season. So there's no real honking basketball teams on that side. There are a couple of bad ones, obviously. The Jazz, the Kings, and the Pelicans aren't good basketball teams, but on their day they can go out and kind of do what they want. The Kings have won three in a row, like out of nowhere as well, and they weren't three easy games either. Beat the Rockets, they beat the Knicks, and they beaten the Lakers in their last three. Three
it's mad.
teams that we are just saying there are shoe-ins for a playing spot. So yeah, do you know what? There's teams there that can cause an upset on their night, and they could upset anyone in this team. Or sorry, in this side, bar maybe the Thunder, who, despite a bit of a shaky run there themselves, they just seem to be coming back to themselves now again. They're 4 wins in a row, 8-2 in their last 10. They just look they could very easily go on another run of winning 15 of the next 16 or something.
Yeah, they really. put those two Spurs losses behind them as well, going out and battering the Spurs the
Yeah.
other night by 21. Um, I think we're kind of more set in the West. I think there's like a clear top four, then a clear next maybe two or three, and then a clear next three because I do think that the Clippers do get in and the Grizzlies fall out. And I like what the Blazers do defensively, especially with Drew Holiday coming back 7-3 in their last 10, despite losing their last two. They're a solid enough team, I think, to get the last play-in spot. But the play-ins then will be very interesting because you're likely to have Warriors, Suns, Blazers, and Clippers there, and all those teams are worthy of a playoff spot. So really interesting in the West. Two interesting conferences, but that's kind of the mid-season check-in. I don't expect too much of a shift, but I think those last play-in spots and certainly seeding is really important to keep an eye on down the stretch here. And it's starting to kind of shape up nicely, I think, similarly to how it's going to shake out. So a good time to do the check-in. Let's jump over then to the NFL. So we've got the playoffs. They've just started. And last week we gave our wildcard round previews and predictions. But before we get into the next round and kind of our reaction to that and the fallout with coaching decisions and stuff from that, we want to touch on our clutch player of the week. So we had two options. We've gone for one each to go different this week and see what we both have prepped on each one. So I'll throw it to you first, Shane, if you want to give yours.
Yeah, so I've gone with Josh Allen. The man is inevitable when it comes down to just getting his team over the line in the stretch. So he was 28 of 35 for 273 yards, one passing touchdown, and two rushing touchdowns, including the one that won him the game. There was just no doubt in my mind he was going to get them down there and score the winning touchdown against the Jags after they'd fallen behind with about 2 minutes left. He's just, as I said, he's just inevitable. He's always going to do it. They mentioned in commentary, there's no Lamar, there's no Mahomes, there's no Burrows. That if he doesn't do it this year, when is he going to do it? And he seems to have taken that to heart himself, that he is going to go out here and just put it up to anyone that comes up against him. He's the Broncos next. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. I don't see that being too difficult for him either. But the Broncos had a good win as well. Or no, they didn't. Sorry, they had the
They
bye,
had the
didn't
one
they? The
seed.
Broncos. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Like I know they have an extra week's rest now, but I still don't think they'll have enough to get past Josh Allen, who's on absolute fire and really, really wants it this year. He's done this without, we've said it a couple of times, but none of his receivers are like, oh my God, every team wants him or every team would love him. But he has players who can just catch a ball, know how to run their routes, and he finds them every single time. And when he wants to run, best of luck stopping him. He's just an absolute monster of a man. He's just absolutely brilliant. And yeah, I think he was player of the week because he had no interceptions, the two rushing touchdowns, 28 of 35, only missed seven passes, whereas Caleb Williams, who you talk about, was only 50%, but the 24 passes he did throw were pretty exceptional as well. I'll let you have a word on him there.
Yeah, I the reason I went with Caleb is because of the clutch part of it. So yeah, the statistics over the game, there was some questionable stuff there, like two interceptions, only 20 rushing yards. He did only take one sack, but he only had 50% completion, 361 yards. But then you look at where those yards and kind of the production came, and it was in the fourth quarter. 184 passing yards and two touchdowns in the fourth. They won that fourth quarter 25-6 to take the game 31-27. Like, that is absolutely unbelievable stuff in the moments that matter the most. And while Josh Allen probably had a more complete game against what was probably a better defense, Caleb was just completely clutch. His evolution under Ben Johnson has been superb. He probably needed that kind of strict coaching from, let's be honest, the guy's a maniac. Ben Johnson, just
Yeah.
nuts, like the stuff he was saying in the locker room afterwards, cursing out the Packers, saying he hates them. Um, that kind of coaching is kind of what Caleb needed. But then he's still allowed to have those explosive plays that he gets outside the pocket. He had multiple 20-yard passes in the fourth. And then that fourth and eighth throw to Rome Odunze when he's out of the pocket,
Mental.
getting chased down, tackled as he's throwing the ball, and he drops it in between like three defenders. 27-yard completion basically kept him alive, kept the season alive. One of the best throws I've ever seen. It was absolutely amazing. And that's what he can do. So that's kind of why I went for him for clutch. I think Allen, the playoffs in general are clutch, and Alan showed how it's done from pip to from wire to wire. But you're looking here at a guy who very first playoff appearance and he managed to do this. I really really enjoyed watching him, to be honest.
Yeah, Joe, what? I noticed you put it like that. I do see where you're coming from and why he was the clutch player of the week. That it wasn't. Joe, what? Not everything comes down to stats. I know we don't. It doesn't look like to us very often that not everything comes down to stats because we're very stat heavy. But sometimes it is just about the eye test. And Caleb Williams did pass the eye test, particularly in that fourth quarter with what he did. I had that pass written down as well. It was silly. Like
Yeah,
it's just absolutely outrageous. You're on 4th and 8, and let's be honest, his fourth and whatever hadn't gone very well in the previous couple of tries. He'd thrown the interceptions on a fourth down as well. Just I just didn't think they had a fourth down completing in him, especially when it was fourth and very long as well. So then for him to come out and just drop that into Roma Dunze was absolutely sensational. As you say, kept the season alive, kept that drive going, and they won the game then. Packers must be sick. Like,
yeah,
just I think it's borderline inexcusable to throw away that game from the position they were in going into the fourth quarter. It's absolutely
yeah,
criminal, but Caleb Williams really did. He made it all about him in that quarter, and he stood up and he said, "That's why this was about me." So I
yeah.
do completely agree with you. I think he was absolutely brilliant.
Just a quick note on the Packers as well. Like that last drive they had was ridiculous because they took only like I think it was like a minute and 15 or a minute and 20 seconds off the clock. They had two pass
Yeah,
completions and both of them they ran out of bounds. Then they went to the end zone, I think twice. They called a timeout. Out of the timeout, they had to delay a game because Jordan Love everything wasn't set at the line the way he wanted it. How can you do that out of a timeout and go back 5 yards and then go to the end zone again and it doesn't work? And then you miss the field goal. Like, they didn't run the ball enough. They didn't stay in bounds. They weren't set up properly for a proper play. That's why there's talk about Matt LaFleur now. I do agree, I think that he should stay because the players love him. He needs to be given another chance. They didn't have Micah Parsons. Love missed a lot of games, which kind of took the life out of the team when they were on a good run. So I do think he needs another chance and probably deserves a contract for what he's done there overall. But there should be questions asked of his management of that game. And Jordan Love, with that delay of game, is just unacceptable, really. And I think both of us picked the Bears, did we, in that game?
yeah,
Yeah, so like we just got through by the skin of our teeth, but I think when you saw that happening, you're kind of like, yeah, I picked the Bears, but also at the same time, they should have never won that game because the Packers just made an absolute mess of it more than anything else.
yeah. It was more about the Packers giving the game to Williams than Williams going out there and forcibly taking it from him. But no, when he got the chance, he clearly took his chance to go and win the game. But yeah, as you said, the Packers and another team who I can't believe what they're doing is the Eagles with their play to try and keep their drive going on fourth down as well to try and stay in the tournament is four verticals. Who runs
It's
four
crazy.
verticals? It's the easiest play in football to defend. It's absolutely mental. Just throw four lads up there and hope to find one. That was another one that was absolutely just crazy as well. And Sirianni, he won't be fired, but he's another man who should have serious questions asked him as well. I know we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes with their offensive coordinator being demoted or if not sacked, we're not sure yet. But I just think there was a couple of question decisions from a couple of teams that kind of were in a driving seat to get through and just threw it away.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. We'll move on to that now because there was some fallout from a couple of losses with coaching decisions. So, like you mentioned, Kevin Patullo was, would say, demoted for now because Sirianni kind of made a statement that sounded like they're moving on from him, but it didn't say that they're letting him go from the team. Now, whether Patullo responds by kind of leaving out of pride and saying like, "Look, you're demoting me. I know you don't want to sack me," because basically he's Sirianni's right hand man since he started there and just got this offensive coordinator job. It wasn't the right decision ultimately, and the playbook was very limited. I don't think that's mainly down to Patullo. I think Jalen Hurts had a big voice in that. He doesn't like movement at the line. He doesn't like motions. He doesn't like any of that stuff. He wants it to be very clear in front of him, which then takes away a lot of the creativity. That was the reason they won the Super Bowl with Kellen Moore I just don't know. I think Hertz has a lot of questions to ask. He'll obviously still be there, but Patullo obviously bit the bullet, and he was the first one to go. Then we moved into Monday Night Football, where Mike Tomlin stepped down as the Steelers head coach after they got the doors blown off them in the fourth quarter by the Steelers. It was close up until that point, 7-6, and then it was 23 nil. Not down to CJ Stroud, who made a lot of mistakes, but it was mostly down to the Houston defense. And I think from the way that the commentary team was talking, it seemed like Tomlin had almost spoke to them confidentially and said, "Look, I'm leaving after this if we lose," and that is what happened. And he's going to probably do TV for a year, similarly to what Sean Payton did, and then come back a year from now when he sees something that he likes, because he's obviously had a long time there. He was the longest tenured head coach in the league with 19 years with the Steelers. So interesting. What did you make of those two? Well, they're neither of them really are dismissals. One is a demotion, seems like, and the other one is a walk away.
So the one with Tomlin in particular, I saw a stat on Twitter that he started his job 3 months before the first iPhone came out.
That's mad.
And it was a questionable decision at the time. Apparently, he was the Washington defensive coordinator. No one saw him being a head coach at the time, and the
He was
Steelers
Vikings.
took a punt.
Vikings.
And Vikings defensive coordinator, and the Steelers took a punt. And obviously, we know he never had a losing season, but his playoff record was borderline abysmal, to be perfectly honest. So I do think it was time for a change there. If they were going to keep kind of pushing into playoffs and then losing them, then it's really might as well just finish the season a week earlier and not put your fans through the heartbreak over and over again. So that one wasn't a surprise to me. I do agree with you. I think he'll go and do television for a year. Then next year take the Jets job or something, because if it's not coming up this summer, it's going to come up next summer more than likely. And the one from the Eagles, then we've been saying on here, there was a game, I can't remember which one it was. They didn't complete a pass in the second half. And I know that's down to Hurts, but it is also the playbook. The playbook's been limited all year. It wasn't just limited for this 49ers game. It was going to catch up to him. We said that as well at one point, that they kept kind of almost doing a Chiefs on it by winning these one score games and not doing much in the second half, but the defense was saving them. And it finally, their luck finally ran out, because Christian McCaffrey he's just outrageous. He can do everything. He's a wide receiver playing running back.
Yeah.
There's nothing that man can't do. And he was my kind of my wild card pick in the preseason, for if he had a good year, that he could be in contention for MVP. Obviously, he's not going to win it now, but he's had the season I kind of expected he would have. It's just Drake May and Stafford have just said, no, this is going to one of us. This is staying as a quarterback award. But the season McCaffrey had has been absolutely superb. He stayed fit, which, like, I think it was his last year in Carolina. It looked like he was kind of just going to succumb to injuries, and he seems to have put that on the back burner again now, and he's back to himself. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think the Eagles need a change. The Steelers need a change. It was no surprise really, but it's very Nick Sirianni to straight away come out and say, "Okay, I'm not the one that's taking the fall for this. Someone else is." But you could see before that last play that Sirianni and Hurts were the ones doing the talking about the four verticals more than it was. His name is going out of my head again.
Patullo.
Yeah, Patullo. It was the two of them that were doing more talking than Patullo. Patullo was kind of standing there like the third man in the committee who had nothing to do with it. And then they went out and threw the verticals, and it's like, oh well, this is his fault, so off he pops.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in general, they're teams that needed to make moves, and we'll see how it works out for them, especially the Steelers.
Yeah, I don't think Sirianni did a good enough job, and Hertz didn't either. But Patullo was ultimately going to be the guy that got the sacking, and it may be more questions asked than if next year is similar. But we'll have to hold out on that one. Yeah, Tomlin. I think Steelers fans probably wanted this for a while, just as a change, because I don't know, it's almost worse to just keep getting into the playoffs and then just losing every single year
Yeah.
and not win a playoff game in 10 years. Yeah, that's hard when you get there pretty much every single time. A last
It's
kind of
actually mad
coaching.
that he got away with it for 10 years when you think about it. Like
Mm,
he went 10 years without winning a playoff game. It's like, oh, but he wins every season. It's like, yeah, but winning seasons mean absolutely nothing when it comes to playoffs. Like teams get into playoff and losing records. It doesn't really make a difference if you're going to have a winning season. It's great for his stat pad, but it's not great for the team when they go out and lose every single first round then. So yeah, there was definitely time for change. I'm not dismissing anything he's done. I think he's done an absolutely wonderful job at the Steelers over 19 years, and that's some tenure in any sport, but particularly in a sport where nearly a third or sorry, nearly a quarter of the coaches lose their job every summer. So to stick it out for 19 years is some going, but I think it was time for him and the Steelers to go in a new direction.
Yeah, 100%. And similarly to the Ravens, they moved on from Harbaugh, which
Yeah,
I'm delighted about because he's landed with the
yeah,
Giants. And I think that's going to be a massive change for the Giants. But I think there's plenty of time in the off season to talk about that and what way it's going to be shaped once he has his coordinators in place, etc. So we'll leave that one for
yeah.
now. But everybody just know I'm delighted about it. We gave our predictions last week for the wildcard round. We both went 5-1, so we both did really well. We differed in two games. We split those, and then the other four we agreed on were all correct. So we both had Bills to beat the Jags. We both had the Bears to beat the Packers. We both had the Rams to beat the Panthers, and we both had the Texans to beat the Steelers. Then Shane went Chargers over Patriots. I had Patriots, so that one got me the win. And then Shane went Niners over Eagles, and I went with the Eagles, which, yeah, we just talked about how abysmal they were at the end of the game. So Shane got the win there. Pretty good from both of us, 5-1. So
Yeah.
let's move into the divisional round and let's talk about the games and our picks there. So first up on Saturday night is Bills at Broncos at 9:30 p.m. I'm going with Bills. I think you're going to go with them too, based on how you spoke
Yeah.
about Josh Allen. But they battered the Broncos in the wild card round last season, 31-7. It'll be closer this season because the Broncos play close games with absolutely everybody, no matter how good or bad they are. Um,
Yeah.
the main thing for me, the Broncos, yeah, they have rest. It'll help their defense because their defense kind of seemed to slow down a little bit in the back half of the season. So I think they need this rest that they got. But at the same time, I don't trust them a lot at all. They beat the Chiefs 20-13 when they had Chris Oladukin at QB. They beat Las Vegas 10-7 and 24-17 this season. Not good enough. They beat the Giants 33-32. Not good enough. They beat the Jets 13-11 in London, and probably the worst game I've ever watched. And
Worst
then
game of the season, comfortably.
easily. And then the Chargers last week didn't play a single person in week 18, and they barely beat them. They beat them 19-3, but it should have been
Yeah.
a lot more than that. The Chargers had Trey Lance playing, and the Broncos played their full strength team. So you're looking at one team who scraped through a lot of games this season, and I'm not convinced. And another team who I picked them last week to win the Bills, but there was still questions about them. And then they just answered them with Josh Allen going 28 for 35 against a very strong Jags defense. And I think the Jags offense is better than the Broncos, and they match up pretty well to the defense of the Broncos. So I think the Jags are actually a better team, and the Bills took them down. We've got McDermott. He gets a good scheme against everybody. He had a good scheme against Trevor Lawrence last week, covering the middle, and that led to one of the picks because he likes to go there. He'll have something else against Knicks, whose tendencies are much easier to figure out because he can't throw very far. So if you can eliminate some of the checkdowns, that's how you win this game, I think. I'm really, really high on the Bills here. They're riding their first road win in the playoffs since 1992, and I think they're going to get another one.
Yeah. I don't know if we're doing locks for this round, but this is the one that I will be locking in if we were. I think the Bills will get this. It won't be comfortable until maybe the fourth quarter. I think the first three could be very tight, and then the Bills will probably just pull away towards the end and will look a lot more handsome than the actual match showed. But yeah, there's no way Josh Allen is going to lose this one after winning last week. We'll see sorry, the divisional
Conference round
final. Sorry,
next
yeah.
up next weekend. Yeah,
Yeah, next again. But we'll see how he does then, because that'll be a different kettle of fish to this. But I think he is going to just keep riding the wave he's on and get over the line in this one anyway. 23-13.
right. If you're giving a score, I'll go for it as well. Then I'm gonna go at 27-20. So
Ooh.
touchdown in it. But I think the Bills just have too much. Next up then is 49ers at Seahawks at 1 a.m. on Saturday. I'll let you go first with this one. What do you think?
I'm sticking with the 49ers on this. I'm sticking with my guns after backing them last week. I didn't like a lot of what Brock Purdy did, but when it came down to when he really needed it, he found his man and he got him over the line. I think George Kittle is obviously a massive loss, and that goes without saying. Losing him is probably takes half their playbook out, so they're going to have a bit of work to do to get it going. But I think knocking out the Super Bowl champs is going to give them such a boost of confidence. The Seahawks have Sam Darnold. You can stop him by just annoying him, getting in his face, putting him under pressure. I think the Seahawks can do that. Sorry, the Niners can do that, and we'll see just how much he can find Jackson Smith and Jigba and see if we can get him over the line. But I do think the 49ers are going to keep rolling here. Jennings, McCaffrey, confidence is so high. So hopefully they can just kind of just continue on from what they did last week and just get themselves to keep going.
I'm really surprised that you went with the Niners here. I think this could be a bloodbath for the Seahawks, to be
Really?
honest. Yeah, I just think off the bye week, they beat them 13-3 the week before, so it's not like they hammered them, but the way they stifled Purdy in that offense when they had Kittle as well. Um, I just think the Niners have too many injuries. Like,
Flaws?
yeah, too many injuries. It's not really flaws if they had their full complement, but like Warner can't play still. He might play if they get through, but he can't play this weekend. Nick Bosa's still out. Mikael Williams is out. And you've got Martin and B-Tune out. Gross Matos, D Winters, and Jair Brown are all questionable as well. They're just depleted on defense. The Eagles should have won that game easily. Saquon was actually having a good game. Um, AJ Brown dropped some passes, and Jalen Hurts had an awful game. Just kept leaving the pocket when there was no need to do so. Darnold won't do that. The Seahawks won't do that. They'll just pound the life out of his team on the ground. I see Charbonnet having a big game here personally. I just think that with all those injuries, the Eagles are going to be even more embarrassed after this weekend because they're going to see that this team was here to be taken. Personally, that's my take on this. I really see the Seahawks winning this game by they could win this by 20 in my opinion. So
What what's your
we're
score
very different
prediction?
here. Oh, okay. I'll go 28-10 to the Seahawks.
Ooh,
I think it will
okay.
be a pretty big score difference. What do you think?
I have it 21-14 to Niners. I do think it's going to be very tight, but
Mm.
I just have a feeling about this 49ers team. We'll have to wait and see how wrong I am now because there's no way I'm getting 4 out of 4. I'm never going to get that lucky. But yeah, I do think this will be. Will this be the closest of the four of them? I actually think all four of them are going to be quite close. Well, 3 or 4 are going to be quite close. I think the Bills are going to pull away at the end, but the other three I think are very 50-50. But I just think
Mm.
the 49ers will scrape over the line in this one.
Interesting, interesting. I like it. So we've got a head to head there on that one. We'll move into Sunday then. I'll take this one first. So Texans at Patriots, 8 p.m. on Sunday. I think the Texans will destroy this Patriots offensive line. They had an easy start. The Patriots did play in the Chargers in their first playoff game. They had an easy schedule all year, the easiest since like 2003, and a very easy playoff game against a team that was completely depleted on their O line. Both CJ Stroud and Drake May had kind of iffy games at times. Stroud obviously more so. He had 5 fumbles, 2 loss, 2 of them were lost, and he had an interception. Drake May had 1 interception and 2 fumbles, and he only lost one. But I think the fact that he took 5 sacks against this Chargers team, that can easily be outdone by the Texans, who have a much better
Hmm.
defensive line. That's going to be 7 or 8. He could have a couple more fumbles. I just think only managing to beat the Chargers 16-3 with the amount of sacks they had on Herbert, the amount of pressure they had on him, the amount of chances Drake May had. Now, they got the job done, yes, but I think if we saw the Texans play the Chargers last week, they would have beaten them by 30. So I honestly think that the Texans are going to come here and do this thing with their D line, and I don't think we see Stroud be as bad as he was last week. Now, if he is, it'll definitely go the Patriots' way because they're a better team than the Steelers. But if he cleans it up and only kind of even has one turnover, their defense makes up for that. So I really like the Texans in this one.
Yeah, so I made the mistake last week of underestimating the Patriots, and I'm going to do it again this week. I also see the Texans coming through it. I think Nico Collins playing is absolutely massive for the Texans if he can. He went out with concussion last week, so getting him back is really
He's gone.
important. But as you
He's
said,
out.
he is out.
He's 100%
Okay.
out. Yeah, they confirmed it's a big loss.
Okay. But like what I wrote down here was Texans beat the Patriots based on the defense. And I think that's the way
Yeah,
it's going to go. that video the Texans put out after with the four DBs is just it's comedy gold and something that's not meant to be comedy gold. And I think the four of them are going to come out again. They're going to make their calls and they're going to do what they need to do. And I think the Patriots are just going to they're just not going to be able to live with this Texans defense. Even if Drake May has a really, really good game, or even, yeah, if he has an excellent game, I still think the defense is just going to get him. He's going to be under pressure a lot. He hasn't faced a team like the Texans all season, so yeah, I think the Texans come through this 23-10.
Ooh, okay, 23-10. Um, yeah, I'm gonna go something similar. I'll go 24-16. I think that they have enough to get the win. And I do think that you're 100% right in the fact that their defense is too good. And I love the fact that you literally know what they're going to do every time, and there's nothing you can do about it. They never send
Yeah,
five, very rarely. They always send four. They have five men back at all times. Extra DB helps them out, and then they just line up four against you, and they don't disguise anything. They don't hide anything. They just go, "Let's do it," and there's nothing you can do about it.
yeah.
That's how good that defense is, and I think that's what wins you things, and that's what wins you championships. It makes a difference. So, yeah, we're in alignment here on this one. Last up, then. Ooh, this one is tasty. Rams at Bears,
Yeah.
11:30 p.m. on Sunday. Go for it. What have you got?
I think we're going to be in alignment on this as well because you have the Rams to win this and I have the Rams to get to the final. That's not going to change here. The Rams are going to beat the Bears. They're just a better overall team. Puka and Stafford are they're basically Batman and Robin at this stage. They're always looking for each other. They always find each other. They're just really, really good. The Bears did well to get this far, in my opinion. I didn't see their season going as well as it has. So yeah, I think the Rams are going to just pick them off. It'll be tight. It'll be a bit like the Bills game again. I think it'll be very tight till the end of the fourth quarter, and the Rams will do something to make the score look better than their game was. But I think the Rams are just going to scrape over the line against the Bears.
Yeah, I think it could be close as well, and I do agree with you that I think the Rams have enough. I think it's an interesting game because you look at Caleb Williams. We mentioned he was clutch, and they've won so many late games. But Matt Stafford is like the definition of clutch. Like what he said to Devontae Adams before that last drive. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna snatch these guys' hearts about the Panthers," and then they went out and did it. Like that is crazy. And then to just say that, and then to actually go and do it, like when he says it, he's gonna do it. The Rams find it tough versus big, strong receivers, so I do see the Bears putting up points here. They've always found it tough against strong receivers this season. Like we saw Ted McMillan go off against him twice. Trey McBride had big games against him twice. George Kittle had a big game against him. So I think Loveland and the likes of Adunze are gonna have big games, but I do think that the Bears' defense can be got after. They're the sixth worst rushing defense for yards allowed per game in the league, 134.5. 11th worst for passing yards against 227.2. I think with the dual threat of Blake Corum and Kyron Williams, they're just going to pound the ball all day, get down the field, and then let Stafford do his work in the red zone. I just think they'll go back to that 13 personnel, play three tight ends, get the big guys on the field, and just pound it against them. So I see it being very high scoring. I'm going to go with 31. Uh, let's say 31-28. Really close one, but the Rams get it done.
Yeah, I have 34-23, but it's one of those where it's like a garbage time, for want of a better way, touchdown that takes it from 4 points to 11, and that's how it finishes
Mm,
in. I think it'll be close till the very end. I love what you said about Corum and Kyron Williams there, but I think the fact that Puka he's an option to run it as well on the jet sweep, and when he
mm.
when he gets kind of moving downfield, downhill as well. He's hard to stop. So they really have a triple threat at running back if they want it. And also Puka through the air is an absolute machine as well. So I think that could be the winning and the losing of it. But yeah, I'm going 34-23 with a very late Rams touchdown, making the score look a lot better than it probably could or should have been.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a game that goes close to the board at the end, and I could see that happen on what you said, like the Bears kind of falling short and the Rams just picking the ball up on a short field and getting another score. But Interestingly, as well, it's going to be really, really cold. It could be one of the coldest playoff games ever. So I think that will mean we'll see a lot of running the ball, which opens up big plays down the field. So I think we're in for an absolute treat here with this one. So let's quickly run through our divisional round picks, all four of them, and we'll pick one lock from the four, which team we think is definitely going to win that we really like. So my picks are I'm going with, first of all, on Saturday, I'm going with the Bills to beat the Broncos in Denver. I'm going with the Seahawks to take down the Niners in Seattle. That's going to be my lock. I really like the Seahawks in this one with the depleted Niners roster. I'm going with the Texans to take down the Pats just down to their defensive ability. And then I'm going with the Rams over the Bears in a thriller.
Yeah, so we're three the same and one different. So the Bills is my lock to beat the Broncos, 49ers to scrape past the Seahawks, Texans to beat the Patriots, also based on the defense, and then the Rams to beat the Bears. Kind of, yeah, just about the Rams to beat the Bears, and my lock in is the Bill then, or the Bills, not the Bill. The Bill was a great TV show, though. If anyone hasn't watched it, you should get on that too. But get on the Bills first on Saturday evening.
Nice one. So those are our picks. Let's get into Gunshance then, where we'll throw out our underdogs. So last week we both had two right each. So it brings the score
Again,
to 20. Yeah, again, 20 to 19 to me, still no 5 pointers. We both had Millwall to beat Burnley. That did not work out, unfortunately. And that
we
was
both
one of
also had a
them.
fiver on Millwall to beat Burnley. Or-
Yeah, because we saw the odds and we had both got the Hawks right the night before, so we were like, oh, let's just do it. And that's the only one that we got wrong in the whole weekend, of course. So anyway, that one didn't work out. Burnley got the handy win. It was 5-1. Bears, I had to beat the Packers. That came up. And we both had the Hawks to beat the Nuggets. That came up. And the other one Shane had was the Niners to beat the Eagles. So that was a good pick. So let's go with this week then. Let's hear what you've got first.
yeah, so I've taken the word underdog to the absolute max limit here with this one because clearly picking teams that are just on the edge of being underdogs hasn't worked for me very well. So I'm sorry to your father, but I've gone for Wolves at 7-2 to beat Newcastle at home. Newcastle are 7-10. I just think Wolves have been looking an awful lot better in the last couple of weeks. Newcastle had a really tough game against City midweek as well. We've said all season Eddie Howe can't manage midweekends coming into the weekend games again, so I can see him doing that again here, and Wolves just kind of nicking it off him. The only one I've gone that feels like a lock is the Texans at 11-8 to beat the Patriots. I couldn't believe that the Texans were underdogs. I thought they'd both be odds on in this game, so when I saw that, it was one I absolutely had to go with. And in the NBA, I've gone for the bottom place Pacers at 8-32 to beat the top place Pistons, who are 28-10. Don't ask me why. I've only gotten one NBA one wrong all season. That's not going to end here. The Pacers are going to beat the Pistons. When the odds come out, put everything on it.
That's I can't believe you went for that. I think if that comes off, then there's some kind of voodoo going on here. But anyway, I'll give my picks out. You've gone for big underdogs in a couple of them. I'm going with United to beat City. Anything can happen in a derby. It's 13-5. City are 19-20. The early game on Saturday, so I'm backing my team there to get the win. I'm also going with Texans over Pats. I'm surprised that they're underdogs, and I'm surprised the Pats are 5-9 in this. The Texans are 6-4, so I really like that pick. So obviously, I'm jumping on that one with you. Then the last one I'm going for is Friday night, the Clippers to beat the Raptors. So the Clippers have 17 wins, but they're on a good run, 8-2 in their last 10. The Raptors have 25 wins. They've been good too. I think 7-3 in their last 10. But I do like them to get the win here, the Clippers on Friday night, and continue their run. So there's an 8 game difference in the wins here. So that's my final pick for Gone Chance. Let's jump over into the football. So we're just going to do a midway kind of check into the January transfer window and all the kind of, I wouldn't say major for some of these, but all the moves I guess that were done by Premier League teams. We'll go by date, so we'll do the most recent first. The most recent one is Facundo Buonanotte going from Brighton to Leeds on loan. Yeah, he only played 8 games for Chelsea. That was a really, really weird one that he was even on loan there. So maybe he'll do a bit more with Leeds. And while we're on this topic of Chelsea, Conor Gallagher has gone from Atletico Madrid to Spurs for 40 million euro. I'm not sure what kind of football they're going to be playing in that midfield with himself, Palhinha, and Bentancur. They might start trying to tackle each other. But I do think that he is a
Yeah.
good player, maybe just not with those other two. So what do you make of these two?
So I really like the De Bruyne Nate one because I do think he's a really good player. That Chelsea move never ever made sense. It made sense for Chelsea because Chelsea just like to snap up all the wingers they can find or attacking players they can find. But he's better off at Leeds where he will definitely play. Himself and Aronson might kind of swap in and out a bit more, but to give Aronson a bit of a break. And he's been on a really good run recently as well. But I think it's a really good pickup for Leeds. And I'm delighted he's after getting out of Chelsea to actually play some football before the end of the season. Conor Gallagher, I agree with everything you said. I do think it's a good sizing for Spurs, especially to get him from under the nose of Villa, who they
Mm,
seem to have this made up rivalry real at the moment where the two of them are going at each other constantly on Twitter for absolutely no reason other than they're all stupid. But I think this is one. It's a good pickup for Spurs. Like you mentioned there about Bentancur and Panini being defensive and Gallagher dropping in there as well. But outside of those two, they were down to kids really. They were down to Archie Gray, Bergval, and then Xavi Simons is kind of playing a bit as a more of a midfielder and attacking player as well. So they can push Xavi Simons up to be a front three player now, especially with the loss of Kudos for a good while as well, and drop Gallagher in as one of the three midfielders as well. Maybe drop one of the other two defensive players, even though Paulinho has turned into an overhead kick wonder this season. He has two of them now, but I think he's a really good pickup. 40 million euro feels quite cheap considering. I think, geez, before he went to Atletico, the offers were pushing 60. Like, so I do
yeah,
think it's a really good move for both of them.
yeah, no, I agree. Definitely. I think that Gallagher will have a good stint. I actually would have even liked him at United for that price. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
He would have done a job there in the midfield. But Semenyo then was next, 72 million euro from Bournemouth to City. We do have Harry Bailey coming on next week to chat Bournemouth. He's a big Bournemouth fan. He has a podcast, the Golden Hour podcast, a good movie podcast, but he's also a big Bournemouth fan. So we want to have him on to talk about Semenyo. He was at his last game for the club. So let's hold off on that one for now and move on to Brian Maggio and Kay Furo. These are two guys, never heard of them. One of them has gone from Metz to Villa for 12 million euro. That is Maggio. And then Furo has gone from Club Brugge to Brentford for 10 million. They're 17 and 18 years of age. They're both for the future, pretty much. But I trust Brentford here more with this one, considering their track record of signing young strikers.
Yeah, I don't know a single thing about either of these two. The Brentford one for me is clearly just it's the way they run through strikers is absolutely insane. How good their talent for signing players is. Like they lost in Buemo and Vissa, and all of a sudden Igor Thiago becomes the best Brazilian player to ever play in the Premier League in terms of goals in a season. And I know they picked him up last year and he missed nearly all of last year with an injury, but he's come into this season like someone who's played in the league for a long time. They've done that over and over again. They replaced Ivan Toney with Vissa basically. And so there's no doubt in my mind that this kid is the next one that's going to just come out of the blocks and kick on. The lad that's gone to Villa, it's a really strange one. Like, why are you paying 12 million for a 16-year-old? We'll have to wait and
Mm,
see. A 16-year-old who's played five senior games. I made a point to the lads, and Mossy came back with a great point, quite strangely, where I was saying how Mason Melia played 98 games for St. Pat's and played in Europe, and they
mm.
only got 2 million for him. But Villa go and drop 12 million on this kid then. But the Irish League were giving away their players for free and for 100 grand recently. So we're going to have to build up to that level where we might eventually see a lad go from 10 million from the Irish League. It mightn't be in our lifetime, but we might get there eventually. But I just think it's a weird one. I didn't even put him on my list, to be honest, because I didn't think we were going to even mention him. So I'm kind of going off the cuff here. But I agree with you. I do also think Brentford's have the better track record here than Villa have. So we'll have to see how they both end up.
Yeah, yeah, I think is a bit of an odd one, especially I think the price, the reason it's high as well is because he's English background, and so that puts up the price also as well.
Okay.
But regardless, I think yeah, it's crazy how much some of these teams get for players, when they're so unproven. And that is a good point about Melia. So let's move on then to a couple of kind of nothing transfers, but I have a point on both of them. One is Cali Muendo has gone from Forest to Frankfurt. What an absolute joke of of a few months he had there.
Yeah.
And he's clearly one of the guys that Sean Dyche was saying that, the guys that played during that Wrexham game, that there's a
Yeah.
reason why they haven't been playing in other games. So the less said about him, the better. Another one that people might not care about outside of Ireland is Aaron Cashin going from Brighton to Blackburn. I think that's good. He's going to get the minutes now in the Championship. He's gone there on loan. So I think hopefully he breaks into the Brighton team some stage in the future, or else the transfer was kind of worthless. But for now, I think that is definitely a good move to get him some more minutes down back in the Championship.
Yeah, so he wasn't playing at all for Birmingham, really. He was. It was a strange move in the first place because Birmingham two centre backs that came up with him from League One, and one of them was one of the players of the season last year, and the other fella is a young lad who was kind of coming up and along as well. I know a couple of Birmingham fans, and they said he was never going to get a look in, so it makes sense to get out of there and go to somewhere that he probably will play. And
Yeah.
Cali Mwendo just. I think we both had fairly high hopes for him in the summer based on what he had done in France, and he looked like a big, strong unit. But
Mhm.
he wasn't getting a look in, and there's a reason he wasn't getting a look, and he clearly wasn't either. He wasn't ready for the Premier League yet, or he might never be. But it could also be a bit of a Hugo Ekitike thing, where you go to Frankfurt and make a name for yourself, and then move back in 2 or 3 years' time. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, I'm not talking about Ekitike having
High
played in the Premier
hopes.
League before, but he failed at PSG. Yeah, but he failed at PSG, went off to Frankfurt, and then showed what he can do, and he's shown for Liverpool this year how good he is as well. Touching on Forest, when we're on them, they've signed another player from Botafogo and another one of these dodgy dealings, apparent or allegedly dodgy dealings. It's another one that just doesn't make any sense. They brought in a 22-year-old left back because the three left backs they have isn't enough. So it's another really strange one of money flying places and players going places that they don't look like they're going to fit in. So we'll have to wait and see how that one works out as well. I don't even have his name written down because it's another one of those nothing transfers. But when I saw it was from Botafogo, it was just another interesting one where in the summer I think they did Forest sold to and signed to, and the money broke even. So we'll have to see who ends up going from Forest to Botafogo now to break the money even again.
Yeah, yeah. I doubt we're probably going to even see that guy. I don't even know who he is, to be honest. So
No,
another one, like you said, that's allegedly looks a bit strange. But let's move on to West Ham's dealings. They're the first ones to kind of really do anything. They signed Tadi Castellanos from Lazio, 29 million euro. A bit much for a guy who only scored 2 goals and had 3 assists for Lazio this season.
yeah,
Last season he had 40 games, 14 goals and 8 assists, so still nothing amazing. He did score for West Ham in the FA Cup already, and they've also signed Pablo from Gil Vicente for 23 million euro. I think that might be a better one. 14 games, 10 goals and 1 assist this season so far after breaking into the team. Probably one for the future as he's only 22. And then on the way out, they sold Luis Guilherme, which was an absolute waste. They got him from
yeah.
Palmeiras, sorry, should I say, in Brazil, a couple of windows ago, and he played like 14 games, didn't score a goal. He's only 19. Gone to Sporting Lisbon now for 14 million euro. So they cut their losses there on that one.
Yeah, so do you see the picture of the two lads when they signed, the two of them side by side? I think it was Fritz Romano put it up when he was talking about the two signings. They are the
Look the
exact
exact
same
same.
person with a different hairstyle. They the
Even the
same
same
tattoos and all. It
tattoos.
was like yeah, it was literally a copy and paste job of one onto the other. But yeah, as you said, the Tatty one is a strange one because he's a striker who doesn't score goals, and they have enough of those lying around. That's the reason they went and got two strikers because the strikers they had don't score goals, and to bring in one that also doesn't score goals is a bit strange. Pablo will be the better one, but I still think West Ham are. I think they're too far gone to stay up now.
They're done.
I had this question in the group chat earlier today of how many points keeps you in the league. I think it's 30 because I don't think West Ham are going to win 5 games between now and the end of the season. So 30 will keep Forest in the league. I think West Ham are gone. I don't think anything they do this month is going to change that. But why spend all that money on one of the big Brazilian talents, never use him, and then just ship him off to Portugal at the first chance? They're the kind of transfers that really annoy me. He could have been an Espo for them if they just played him, but they completely ruined his confidence. And then when he was on the field, he was trying too much to try and earn a starting place. So it was never going to work out there.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I don't think any money they spend would make a difference. I'm sticking by my prediction that they get relegated that I had at the start of the season. They're just not good enough.
Mm.
Let's round this up then. Pascal Gross gone back to Brighton from Dortmund for 2 million. That was great. He's always been good there, and straight into the starting 11 again, of course. And then Brennan Johnson from Spurs to Palace for 40 million euro. kind of went downhill from him for him at Spurs. He always got a goal, it seemed, but he just could never break into the team and be consistent. So Palace did need somebody who has a bit of pace and can actually finish. So hopefully he gets going for them for their sake. But he's definitely lacking confidence after the last kind of couple of seasons or season and a half or so with Spurs.
Yeah, I love the goal signing. I think Brighton really needed someone like him back in there, and as you said, he was dropped straight back in, so they weren't messing about. They brought him in to do a job, and they're going to give it to him probably for the next 18 months. I think he's 34 now, so he doesn't have too much long left in him. But they needed that old head in the midfield because they were playing kind of Hinchelwood and Baliba. Baliba looks to have fallen off a bit of a cliff coming into this season now. I think it might have been the speculation in the summer, but
Mm,
I think at one stage he was substituted at half time 3 games in a row or something because he
yeah,
wasn't putting it in. So I think Gross might get the arm around his shoulder now, and they've Milner there as well. So Gross and Milner are two really good older head professionals to have in a midfield that is just kids that are coming through. So that's a great move. For Brendan Johnson, I do hope it works out for him. As you said, he always was good for a goal. He got the goal in the final against United. Sorry for bringing it up,
yeah,
but I just think he's one of those. If he gets a couple of starts and gets 3 goals in his first 8 games, he could go on and get 10 between then and the end of the season, including Usher. He could get another 7 then in the remaining games they play across the Conference League and Premier League. So I think it's a really good move for him.
yeah. I
Hopefully,
like it, and I do hope it works out as well. There's nothing really in the rumor mill that I'm overly interested in. Outside of
no.
maybe Sterling getting a move to maybe Fulham or West Ham, another London team, I think that would be good for either of them. I'd like to see him go to Fulham because I think they're a solid team and they'd make use of him, whether that be on loan or permanently. But outside of that, there's nothing really I'm too interested in. What about you?
There's only the one that scares me is Mark Gay to Man City. That's the only one
Mm,
I'm really kind of keeping an ear to the ground on because if Man City come in and put a bid in and Liverpool don't, I'll be really annoyed about that. I don't think Liverpool will sign anyone this January. I've kind of come to terms with that now, despite all the injuries. I think they spent enough money in the summer. They need to be able to kind of see
yeah,
it through. But if they're waiting for Mark Gay to come in the summer, Man City come and put a bid in, and Liverpool don't at least try to match it and turn his heads, then what was the point of making all that effort in the summer, literally taking picture of him in his club tracksuit to then just let him walk clean through into Man City. So that's the only one I'm keeping an eye on. Outside of that, I think it's going to be one of the more boring January transfer windows we've had in a long time.
yeah, it is. And currently he's 11-8 to go to City and 3-1 to go to Liverpool or Madrid. So we're looking at the favourites right now for our City, but again, that can change in the summer. So we've got the Manchester Derby to kick off 12:30 p.m. on Saturday. It's Michael Carrick's first game in charge of Man United in this stint. A hard one to call for me, really. I don't know what to expect here because it's his first game. He did well the 3 games he played last time. That was a long time ago. He's obviously improved while he was at Middlesbrough, but this is a completely different team. I think he'll set up similarly formation wise to Fletcher, but I do think he'll change some of the players because he is a strong willed guy and he has his own opinions and his own style that he wants to fit. So I think Ahmad and Mbumo being back, we'll see at least one of those starting. I would love to see Dallo benched because he's just abysmal. He gets himself into good positions and makes mistakes all the time when he gets there. Someone else in that position wouldn't do that if they just played the same style with them. Mazraoui coming back from AFCON when he does get back after the final will be a godsend in that regard. But for now, it's probably still going to be Dallo, and I could see Luke Shaw coming back in for Dorgu, as well as Manu maybe starting again and Mbumo coming into the side. So I do see it being a different team, and I think if United play similarly to how Newcastle set up in the first half of that cup game, Newcastle had so many chances on the break in the first half, and Jacob Murphy was all over
Yeah.
the place with his crossing. It was awful. And if they just put in some good balls with Mbumo, maybe down that side, or Sesko gets on the ball and they take an early lead, then that could cause City problems because then you can kind of sit back a bit. Whereas Newcastle didn't get that early goal and then City took over in the second half. But I think that kind of style is the best thing United could probably do in this game. And I don't know. I think the best they could really hope for is probably a draw, given all the turmoil and chopping and changing.
Yeah, I think Newcastle should definitely have had that early goal, particularly the Vista chance as well that he absolutely balloons over the bar from the centre of the box. makes such a difference if you can get the opening goal against Man City. I don't think United are going to get the opening goal against Man City. But this is my first time, I think, since we started the podcast. So this might be the third or fourth Manchester derby we have covered now. Covered like we're on Sky Sports. But this is the fourth one that we've talked about, we'll say. And I've always backed United and gone chance. This is the first time I haven't gone with United and gone chance. I just don't really fancy them in this one. I think it's very quick for Carrick. It's one of those that they might have been better off leaving Fletcher in charge for one more game and bring Carrick in the week after. Because if it gets ugly here, then it could be ugly with the fans. I don't think it will get ugly. City have drawn their last three in a row in the league. I know they went out then and scored 10 against Exeter, which was outrageous. Don't care who you're playing. Scoring 10 against anyone is just absolutely silly. But three draws in the league, so City really do need to get to 3 points here. I think they will, to be honest. Haaland, Cherky, and Semenyo will probably be their starting three. And the way that Foden and Bernardo played against Newcastle in the second half, they were absolutely all over him with their pressing. They were just exceptional in the second half. And if they start like that in this, then it could be a long afternoon for Man City. I also can't
Yeah.
believe it's half 12 on a Saturday. When do we ever have a
Mhm.
Manchester Derby at half 12 on a Saturday?
I know it is annoying that it's at that time, but I think the more like you listed out the players that City have, the more like I'm like thinking there's no way United get anything out of this game. But I'm gonna stick with my original prediction when I was writing my notes, and that's United getting a 2-2 draw with a couple of counter attack goals. I think if they do get the first one, it would be quite a different game than what we saw when City played Newcastle. And yeah, they haven't been perfect all the time, so I do think it was better to get Carrick, to be honest. Fletcher, while he did do a job, he's clearly not up to the level of a senior manager, and
Yeah,
he did look a bit confused on the sideline. Whereas Carrick, he's got some good guys behind him now that he brought in, and he's also much more experienced, and he did a good job at Middlesbrough. I think the players will probably warm to him as well. He's a likable guy. So I do think that he'll have them better set up. And next week is against Arsenal anyway, so either or is a pick your poison kind of thing. So
yeah, fair enough.
I think I'll go with a 2-2 here in this one. United getting a bit of feel good factor under Carrick and getting a shock result.
Yeah. I think Steve Holland comes in means only one thing for the summer.
No way.
The waistcoat is back.
That's why they got rid of Ashford. He was suggesting Southgate like heavily. I don't think there's any way they go with
Yeah.
Southgate. But if they do,
No, I
I,
don't
I
think so
probably
either.
won't watch a
Being
game next season
serious.
because I just can't. I just can't be
Yeah.
dealing with that.
I've gone 3-1 City here. I just think the front three of City are going, they're all in top form. It's very rare that you get an attacking trio in top form, and when they're on it, it could be anything. The way I think it was 2018, Liverpool went and beat City 4-1, sorry, 4-3, but they were 4-1 up, and Liverpool's front three that day just absolutely annihilated whatever City had at the back. And I could see City doing this too. It's an understrength United defence still. Even if Lissandro is back, he's not 100% up to speed. And he's going to be sitting in beside one of the kids. I don't think he'll start Harry Maguire. So it'll be Euro or Heaven. Probably will be Euro. And then I think you'd be mad to drop Dorgu. He's been in great form. But do you want a really, really attacking fullback? You probably are better off
No,
having
they're
Dallo
going to
and
put
Shaw in
Shaw in
this.
there.
Yeah. So it will be Shaw at left back. But I think he's one of the few players who really benefited under Amram. I think he was a really, really good left-sided centre back under Amram. He was probably the one that Amram turned around the most, and he really kind of revived his United career because there was talks of him going long before Amram came in, and he kind of turned it around. So if he's back now to being a left back, he's just not very. He's not the Southampton Luke Shaw anymore. Obviously not. I know that was 10 or 11 years ago. So how could he be? But he won't be as attacking. He won't be as maraudering. He won't be making overlapping runs. Really, I don't think. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But yeah, I've gone 3-1 City. I know City haven't been great, but I still think they just need the 3 points to try and put the air pressure back on in Arsenal. So I just think they're going to do it here. Sorry.
Yeah, I just with the Shaw point, like I don't want to be like I'm not the biggest Luke Shaw fan
Yeah,
in general, but I do think he had a brilliant period under Amarim, and he had a brilliant
yeah,
period
absolutely.
pre-injuries at United. But I think that the times we did see him play left wing back for stints, um, like in games where Amarim turned it around, he had those overlapping runs still, and his timing is just way better than Dorgu's on those, and his delivery. So even if he can do it 70% of the time that Dorgu does, I think you'll get more out of that because
More
Dorgu
quality.
just he doesn't have a good cross, but yeah, I don't think that's enough to make the difference. And I agree that Dorgu's in good form. It just tactically you can't go with him. He's too attacking, I think. But let's move in then finally to the power rankings. I'll go first here. Last week I had Seahawks, Arsenal, Texans, Pistons, Villa, and Celtics. A bit of a change here. I've stuck with the Seahawks first overall because obviously they didn't play and they got the one seed. So I'm not going to move them. But I've put OKC back in. I moved them up to second because they're in cracking form once again. They're the best team in the NBA. I just think last week the other Pistons and Celtics did deserve a bit of a shout because of the good recent play, and you can't have three NBA in. So I said, why not put them out for a week? But they're back in at two. Arsenal dropped down now because of that to third. They're still going well in all competitions, despite their draw at the weekend. They're still sitting in a nice position, so they're in third. Pistons stay fourth. Brilliant, best team in the East. Fifth then are Texans. They slipped down because although they did win, they didn't look great for the first three quarters, and they just slipped down a little bit because of that. And then sixth is Villa. They're still in there, but they slipped down to sixth because the other teams are just more powerful for me personally. But that's my six: Seahawks, OKC, Arsenal, Pistons, Texans, and Aston Villa.
So last week I had the Texans first, OKC were second, Seahawks third, Arsenal fourth, Celtics fifth, and Villa were sixth for me. So as I mentioned, I have made a couple of changes for this week. OKC moved back up top for me. They're the best team in all the sports we're covering, I think, and they're proving it again on the 8-2 run, as we said. I think it's only them and the Nuggets who are on more than a two winning streak at the moment, so everyone is kind of beating everyone. I think there's one other I saw when we were talking about a second ago, but there's three teams maybe on more than a two
Clippers, I
win
think.
streak, and OKC are one of them. Clippers, yeah. The Texans had then just dropped a second for me. I still think they're absolutely class. They probably should have kept first based on just the four DBs doing that interview or whatever you want to call it after the game. And that was comedy gold, as I mentioned earlier. The Pistons are back in for me and they're up to third. Arsenal dropped to fourth, City are fifth, and the Seahawks are coming in at sixth. I don't think they are less powerful. It's just I wasn't going to bring them in and just start firing them up the ranking. So they're in now. They'll move up next week if they win again. So it's OKC, Texans, Pistons, Arsenal, City, and Seahawks.
Nice, nice. We've got similar teams just in a different order, which is cool. It's getting to that point in the NFL season where it kind of shakes out, and if teams get eliminated,
Yeah.
then there's other guys going to come in. So as of it last season, once the NFL season is over, we'll just move into Premier League and NBA stuff until those two end. So that's another episode wrapped. Apologies for the sniffling, and if you're watching on YouTube, you'll have seen us both muting our cameras to sneeze and cough and blow our noses at different times. But we still got the episode done for you. So yeah, we are Warriors. We both get Clutch Player of the Week for this week's episode, and
Yes.
throw it to you to end the chain.
Yeah, cheers, lads. It's just it is a pleasure doing this every week, and we're going to continue doing it. So keep watching. The road to 100,000 subscribers is still on. So start hitting that button for us, please, and we'll see you next week.
Nice one, lads.
Welcome back to another episode of Who's Got the Ball with Shane and James.